Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
You have people came all the way from all over the state.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Monterey County is here. Placer,
County.
Santa Clara County.
Yeah, no, I saw. Great. I see a lot of
Butte County.
Wow, we've got some artistry too. Yeah, of course.
You're a veteran compared to me.
How'd it go in there? I think it went well. I think that we made our arguments, and I think the law is on our side. I think the facts are on our side, and we tried to also show why this matters. You know, there's a lot of kind of dry, technical, legal stuff you probably heard, but at the end of the day, what's at issue is our entire form of government, our Republican form of government, the rule of law, checks and balances, and the ability to have a representative government where the voice of the people matters, because we've been living under something totally different for 8 months now. So I think that the law is clearly on our side, and I hope that the judge sees it that way, and we'll know in a few days. It sounds like.
Awesome. Thank you for all your work. Thank you. Patriots right here.
Yes, indeed.
An outstanding job.
Thank you guys all for being here, this afternoon and standing out here, waiting, and rallying in support of what is a just cause, and it's a cause that's fundamental to our republic. That there be a separation of powers. That the governor cannot take over legislative functions, and we heard that argument in court today. It really even surprised me to hear it.
Yeah.
That under an emergency, the governor's attorneys argued he has all powers of the state, all of them. The legislative powers, the entire plenary power of the state is centered in himself. That's the very definition of a dictatorship. And that cannot be allowed to stand. And that's exactly why we were arguing, and we've been fighting so hard through this. As legislators, when this emergency first started, we did give the benefit of the doubt a little bit to say, hey, you're the executive, you've been placed in charge to help protect. But as we slowly saw the erosion of our fundamental system of government, culminating in this order that changed election law overnight and said we don't need the legislature to do it. I can just do it myself. And in fact was even quoted in the media as saying, hey, if the legislature wants to act, they can, I guess why not? That's not the respect for the separation of powers that is so central to this government. And it is important, because ultimately it's when those powers are eroded that our rights are most at risk. And that's why it was so important for us to bring this case. We put it all out there today. I think
Hope it wasn't too boring.
we didn't want to leave any stone unturned, so we put on a lot of evidence. We really pointed the judge, I think, to the clear law and the facts of this case. And fundamentally, that's what this case is about. Is the governor legislated. He has no right to legislate. He must abide by this Constitution. It is our compact with the government. It's only by the consent of the governed, and this contract has to be adhered to. And so we put it all out there. I believe, justice will be done. We'll hear from this judge. We will hear from Judge Heckman. We will hear from Judge Heckman maybe in the next few days on a tentative decision in this case. And so we're hopeful, but until then we kind of just gotta wait and see.
The only thing I'd quibble with that you said, Assemblyman Gallagher, is that it culminated with this order. I mean, we know, as you told the judge in there, that it has continued, and in fact is only getting worse, it seems, as time goes on. We're banning gas-powered cars by just nothing to do with any of them. We now have a new system for reopening that uses these phony equity metrics that say that based upon your voter turnout and based upon how many bars you have in your neighborhood, that's going to determine when communities are allowed to open. Nothing to do with any sort of emergency powers, nothing to do with public health. And the thing is that the governor did forecast all of this for us. On April 1st, he was asked, this wasn't an April Fool's Day joke, he was actually asked, do you see the coronavirus emergency as an opportunity to create a new progressive era? And did anyone hear that? What he said?
Yeah.
Of course his answer was, no, of course not. I would never use emergency powers for political purposes. That's what he said, right?
No, that's not
His answer was absolutely. The answer is yes. Absolutely. We see this as an opportunity to change the way we do business and the way we govern. And I think that is a very dangerous thing. And he's made good on his word. And he's been issuing order after order after order that affect all facets of all of our lives without any of us, not me as a legislator, not any of us as citizens, having any say in the matter. And so that's why when we've seen the governor usurp the powers of the legislative branch, we've had to turn here to the third branch of government, our judicial branch, to rein him in. And we are seeing across the country that other overreaching governors have been reined in. We've seen it happen in different U.S. district courts. We saw it happen with the Michigan Supreme Court. But I think what those governors have done have paled in comparison to what the governor has done here. And so the time for a judicial check has arrived. And thank you, everyone, again, for being part of this effort.
Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely.
Good points, and I thought he really made a really good point. Hey, affiliate of NBC, did you hear anything about the polls?
Yeah.
It wasn't about polls. It wasn't about power or
That's
balance.
right.
No, that's all you let us talk about. That's all.
Isn't that a treasonous act that he's
Put
performing?
that out there.
Well, it's a lot of things, and I think that as you saw, as James just said, and as James Madison said, just realized they got the same name. It's the very definition of tyranny when you have executive, judicial, legislative in the same sense. That's what really blew me away is when they actually used the same word that James Madison did in the Federalist Papers to say the Emergency Services Act centralizes the state's powers in the hands of the governor. That is literally what the father of the U.S. Constitution describes as the very definition of tyranny. And here the governor of California is claiming that that's what describes the current state of affairs here in California. It's truly breathtaking. Yes.
Communism in Hungary, and what the government is doing here is exactly what I experienced in Hungary.
Wow, that's very powerful. How is this similar? What do you see?
All the orders that he's putting out that goes into our homes, into our private lives, even his latest order about only 3 families gathering for the holidays, and outside and social distancing, 2 hours. You know, he was in the bathroom as long as his big family being clean. In communism, we had to register our guests when they came from other countries. We had to take them to the police station. They had to give their passport numbers, their birthday, their names, personal information, which country they were coming from, and who they were staying with, and we were being tracked. The family that they were staying with, and the guests from other countries. And just all kinds of, I mean, she's from Hungary too. Wow. We were being watched closely. There was no religious
This is
freedom.
bringing back terrible memories.
This is bringing
Must
back
be like,
terrible memories.
yeah.
And we had no religious freedom. I remember I was about 6, 7 years old, and some Christians from Germany showed up at West Germany. I have to say not East Germany, because East Germany was communist. They showed up at our house. They smuggled Bibles to our house, and we didn't know the people. They just dropped off the Bibles, and Christian books left. And we kids, there were 4 of us, we watched this happen, and our parents told us, you kids can never say anything to anyone about what you just saw, because if you do, you may never ever see us in your lives again. And I grew up with that fear, that if as a kid, this slips out of my mouth, I may never see my parents again in my life.
And you thought you were coming here for freedom.
Exactly.
And now you have to experience this all over again.
Exactly. It's terrible memories. I feel the fear, the terror, the panic that I experienced in communism.
Wow.
And people, Americans must wake up and stop this. They have to stop this.
I think you have a very powerful voice, so I hope you'll keep speaking out. What's your name?
That's right. Edith Weeks.
Edith?
Edith.
Okay, round of applause for Edith. Powerful testimony.
Watch it later. I don't know what he's talking about.
Obvious now that there is no emergency, that there isn't even
Yeah.
study that has proven COVID-19 exists. It's complete nonsense. And I was a little disappointed that James used the language in there that, we're under an extreme emergency and yada for his argument. But why aren't we attacking this idea that there is an emergency in the first place?
Well, that's a good question, and frankly, our legal strategy is that would not bear fruit. We're trying to do what's going to be most effective to get a ruling to stop the governor's one-man rule in its tracks. I will tell you that separate from this lawsuit, me and James Gallagher specifically have introduced Assembly Concurrent Resolution 196 to terminate the state of emergency. Yes. And we didn't do that yesterday. We did it, when was it? It was early May that we introduced that. ACR 196 to terminate the state of emergency, because even if you think that there's still a threat posed by whether it's the virus or something else, that does not justify a one-man rule by the government. And so we have tried on many fronts. We've tried to get the legislature, by the way, to step up and do its job, but they're pretty happy taking the year off. That's why I told the judge in there that you can't willingly abdicate legislative power either, because that's actually, our legislature has been all too willing to let the governor run the state on his own. And did you hear what their counsel said? They said, well, the California legislature as a whole hasn't joined this lawsuit. It's just us, 2 legislators. Whereas in Michigan, the legislature as a whole joined the lawsuit. They actually pointed this out in their brief, saying, Gallagher and Kiley claim to be guardians of legislative authority, but the legislature as a whole hasn't stepped up to the plate. That's an indictment of our legislature. That's not an indictment of us. We are 2 members of the super duper minority in our legislature. All right? We have not that much power to begin with, to be honest with you, because they do everything they can to prevent us from actually enacting good policy. But it's fallen on us to be the ones to try to step up and defend the prerogatives of the legislature and our constitutional form of government. It's pretty amazing, but this is what I think is really the important point, is that everything that we are dealing with right now, the horrors that Edit just described, what we've lived through the last 7 months, has illustrated exactly what is wrong with politics in the state of California. It's just like the usual nonsense on steroids. And I think that a lot of people across the state of California are starting to see that.
It's communism.
Because it wasn't COVID-19 and this state of emergency that started to erode our freedoms, started to erode our Republican form of government in the state of California. I've been in the legislature 3 years. I've seen it get worse and worse and worse every single year. And I think that this is a moment for we, the people of California, to make our voice heard, demand fundamental change, go back to being a government of, by, and for the people. So that's the end of the day what this is about. Where are we from? Where's everyone coming from today?
County.
San Jose? Sacramento, San Francisco? Where? Orangevale, I got a constituent. All right. We're on Mr. Gallagher's turf here, but we got... Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, we have an election in a couple weeks, apparently. I almost forgot.
I wanted to mention, for the Sacramento sheriff to hold up his side of the Constitution, what he supposed to hold up.
The Sacramento sheriff? Well, he's been doing a pretty good job, I think. I haven't been following it that closely, but he's not been enforcing some of the real nonsense. Same with the sheriff of El Dorado County. He's stood up very strong. A lot of the sheriffs. By the way, this is an interesting thing. It was actually the sheriffs who have been some of the leading voices against these governor's policies. So you know what they did in the legislature this year? They came up with a bill to muzzle sheriffs. They came up with a bill. So we're now going to have a sheriff's oversight board with subpoena power, so that if any sheriffs start to get out of line again and don't toe the line for the governor, then suddenly you're under subpoena. I mean, that's the way politics works in the state of California.
I think we should do a citizen's arrest. I do think we should do a citizen's arrest of Gavin Newsom. We'll ask our sheriffs to come with us, escort us there.
I don't know him.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's right behind.
Okay, so it's starting.
Newsom declared that the government of the state of California is an autocracy.
He has. That is true. That's what he said. He has said that the Emergency Services Act centralizes all of the state's powers in the hands of the governor. That is the textbook definition of an autocracy. Right? And so it's like you say, this isn't mere rhetoric where you're saying that it's an autocracy. That's literally what the governor himself is saying and what he's defending and what he's trying to get a court order to validate in this litigation. But I mean, when you look at the arguments they've made in this case, I know that it's clear to me they know they have exceeded what the law allows. And they've acted in ways that no previous governor ever has under this law, the Emergency Services Act.
Ever in our entire country.
They've provided not a single example in the last 50 years where a governor has done anything like the governor has done in this case, and this law has been in existence. And as I just said a minute ago, it only keeps getting worse. That's the thing. So in our first brief, we said, when Republican government ends, it's not always because suddenly, a Caesar arrives on the scene, although some might invite those comparisons. It's, it can happen as our norms, our institutions, our habits of citizenship and democracy erode over time. And that's what you're seeing happen. The governor started out issuing executive order, and now it's just the way things are done. We have a one-person government. He gets to hold a press conference every day. He announces the latest order, the latest edict. And what do we as citizens do? We just have to accept it.
Just follow it.
That's what I said today, is that the whole idea of the American experiment is that we're not mere subjects of state power. We are part of a political community where we share power together, and we're authors of our own political future. That's the way it's supposed to be. We have agency as citizens, right? And that is eroding. We're seeing this sharp distinction between the ruler and the ruled that we were supposed to have thrown out in 1776. So.
Now, I talked to Sheriff Mack and I asked him how we can arrest. I want to know how to arrest the governor. He said you'd have to get sheriffs to go and do this and a prosecutor to prosecute. So I'm asking you, who would prosecute this case and who would be the sheriffs who would go, and I will make the arrest.
Well, look, that's another avenue. We're focused on the one that we have before the court right now.
Okay, but I'm coming here from 6.5 hours, Orange County.
Orange County, all right, you're the winner. I was looking for who came the farthest. We have a San Diego or something?
Riverside.
Riverside, all right.
We got attacked on the way here because we had Latinos for Trump on our van.
Wow, that's messed up.
What do they do?
They threw soda and then something in our windows, and they were trying to ram us with their cars.
Wow.
We called the police.
Wow.
They had fires.
That's horrible. It's getting crazy. So do you know anything about them taking the ballots that they have with the barcodes, and people are drawing lines through them, and that they're taking those in the election offices and setting them aside and not processing them?
I have not heard about that.
Well, I have. Linda, you know the Election Integrity Project? I think you might want to investigate what they've been finding.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that.
Observations of the people processing the ballots, and I've heard they're taking these ballots that have the barcodes, and people like me have drawn lines through it and have put our ballots in, and now they're setting them aside, they're not using them.
That is fascinating. It's very interesting. You've seen in recent days the Secretary of State and the Attorney General have issued cease and desist orders against the Republican Party, claiming that somehow something fishy was afoot with these ballot drop boxes. But it's their own party that legalized the practice of ballot harvesting, which is a pretty crazy idea in the first place. And then, if anyone else tries to use the law, suddenly it's subject to a cease and desist order. But when it comes to our elections in California, talk about the pot calling the kettle black for the Secretary of State and the Attorney General to be talking about election integrity. This is the same Attorney General who gives you a totally, fraudulent description of the propositions when you see them on your map, right? You remember the gas tax repeal?
Yes.
How suddenly that said nothing about there being a gas or a tax. You'll get the ballot right now. Same with the one to get rid of Prop 13. Just nothing about a tax raise. It's just additional revenues that suddenly appear magically, right? And so it's pretty crazy stuff. And then as far as the Secretary of State, this is the guy who's supposed to be in charge of our elections, and I've never seen a more partisan person in my life. You know what he said to me and James Gallagher? When we initially got a preliminary injunction against the governor in this case, or a temporary restraining order, the Secretary of State accused me and James of throwing our democracy into chaos.
Oh, brother.
That's literally what he said. He put out a tweet accusing us of throwing our democracy into chaos by actually insisting that we have a democracy. That's going way back. All right, well, thank you again, everyone. It's so great to connect with you. And it's really rejuvenating to see people who are impassionate and are willing to fight for our state. So thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much.
The tears I've had for one day.
Oh, you have? Okay. Do you have a card or something?